Well, hey everyone, Rachel here, and I'm excited to jump into a topic that I don't think we really think or talk about too much in the realm of why would you want to build or grow your emotional intelligence? Like, what is that serving? How does that help you as a feminine leader? So I want to preface this a little bit with like the bottom line answer that I have is it will solve everything almost. I mean, you will still have to make money to live and survive and do all these things that we do in the world that we require for our standard of living, right? And I would imagine most of us and all of us who are listening to this episode and the Pausecast and podcasts in general, like we're really privileged. We're really fortunate. We have roofs over our head. We have clean water to drink. We have a network of people. We have the internet accessed at our fingertips. Like there's so much that we have. And I think it's super easy to forget that underneath all of that, underneath everything is the ability that we have that dictates our thoughts, feelings, and behaviors in the world. And that is all driven 100% by your own emotional intelligence or your own EQ. So let's talk about this. And I want to break it down into these 4 big pillars that I work with my clients with. And if you don't know me at all, maybe this is your first time listening, how I came about in all of this is that I burned out of my job. I burned out at Google many moons ago at this point, but it really was because I wasn't present. And I didn't really know at any time, other than maybe when I felt happy and joy, how I felt. And emotions were kind of like this secondary, tertiary, even beyond that, fourth, fifth place, sixth place of my world. So I didn't really think about them. I didn't notice them other than when I just felt angry and I stuffed it down. Who are my passive aggressives out there? And then I went about my day, I did my things. And I think a lot, in my case, I used athletics for really getting my system in a place that felt good, meaning I would run harder if I was angry that day, even though I didn't really know I was angry, or I just felt frustrated. If I let myself feel that. And so I'm saying all of this because if you're relating to anything in this story, maybe you struggle with feeling present and you've got kids at home and you're thinking about work as you're doing the dinner or playing with them or spending quality time, so-called quality time with them, then this is for you. This episode is for you because I think we undervalue these tools that we can learn, and we can all learn them. I know that firsthand because if I can do it, you can do it. And then we all of a sudden start to shift in ways that feel really eye-opening, not only eye-opening, but just opening in general in our lives. So we start to create space for things that matter more to us. And that is a big deal, right? What if you had more time? What if you had more space for thinking? What if you were being in service to your doing, right? All these things that you love to do was actually present for them so that you could do all these awesome things you're doing in the world, right? When it comes to work and showing up, I think when we're able to understand our emotional intelligence and how we're showing up and what we can do differently, then our worlds can really shift, not just at work, but everywhere. Because you might have heard this saying, let me know if you have, right? The way we do one thing is the way we do everything. I think I say that a lot, and I remind myself of that a lot, because I think sometimes in my world, maybe you can relate to this, compartmentalizing is like a really good strategy. And then you don't have to think about something, and that's needed sometimes. But let's talk about these 4 pillars, kind of break it down for how this helps solve emotional intelligence, like what it leads to. So the first pillar is just leading from this EQ mastery space. So what does that mean, right? What is EQ mastery, and what does that solve for? And so if you tuned into the podcast episode 90 last week, we talked about these competencies of EQ. We talked about self-awareness, self-regulation, also also called emotional regulation, which is like expressing ourselves. We talked about empathy, resilience. We talked about social awareness and the ability to read the room, for example, like why that matters so much and all of that. So that's really what EQ leaders are working on, I would say. And do we need EQ leaders now or what? Like we all know this, and there's so much, and that episode goes into it too, about evidence why we need this, right? It's the number one skill recruiters are looking for in leaders. And in fact, a lot of technical skills or those competencies that are just knowledge-based are learnable. We can all take a coding class. We can all learn a language, right? These are skills that are available if we take a course and kind of study up. What we also think is the challenge, though, is when it comes to EQ, emotional intelligence, it doesn't get learned in a class necessarily. Like if you read a book, right? You actually have to apply it so that your brain starts to change the way it thinks. You start to make the unconscious, which are your patterns, your unconscious behavior, your habits that are going on autopilot that may or may not serve you well, right? What if you interrupt people? What if you are in drama all the time, blaming others, or maybe you feel victimized? Like these are big deal things that really impact us as EQ leaders. So I think that's the first pillar that is important to know about. So EQ solves for really a gap in the world right now. And we so need you if this is your jam, if you are wondering how I can be more self-aware. So I love talking about the daily pauses that I think are available for anyone to try. And that's a great way to start. You can name a feeling. That's another great way to start. And these are really simple things, right? These are mini moves that move into and help you move into this desired space. Okay. So that's the first pillar, the EQ leader. The second pillar is a build on that, which is the embodied leader, right? So as a female leader in business, guess what? You are gifted in this aspect of being embodied, because women in general, like this is a general term, but we are sensitive, right? Like our skin is actually more sensitive to touch with the female brain and the body versus the male brain and the body. These are just things that have been backed up by science. And again, it's generalities, but we also are in touch with our emotions to the point where it's been ostracized, that we aren't actually seen in a positive light for it if we are feeling maybe sad or depressed or frustrated or hurt, like all of these things, right? So knowing how you feel requires you to be embodied, because you have to be in your body to notice what you're feeling, okay? And so embodied leadership, I talk about this a lot in my talks too, to clients. It really means checking in with that self-awareness, how you're doing, but you're truly congruent in your body and in what you say and do in the world. Meaning if I am angry, am I smiling in the meeting? Like probably could be possible, but it's not going to come across genuine. It's just not. And we've all kind of seen and witnessed this if we're on the other side, right? So embodied means I am aligned with what and how I think and feel with how my body's in the world, right? And so that is a really important skill, because sometimes we think, well, no one will notice if, how resentful I feel if I just show up and play nice. Can anyone relate to this? I'm curious. For me, oh man, I know this was a big one. And I also had learned through my own studies in emotional intelligence, some things like little white lies were very rampant in my family, in my family system. And it was okay to kind of stretch these truths. And now looking back, I know that that isn't congruent, because those weren't in integrity with the truth. So things like this are really key. And then our bodies suffer, right? Like we might feel pain. It can show up physiologically and all of this. So embodied leadership is super, super important. And it's another huge pillar. It's another huge need that we need in the workplace. And we have to shift there if we truly want to move into this next level of how we can be in the world and sustain ourselves and the planet, I think, right? embodied leadership. So the third pillar, so we've covered 2, EQ leader, embodied leader. The third pillar, what EQ solves for, by the way, and I love this one. This is to me like ding, 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 the grand prize is how to be a nourished leader. I call in my class, in my executive leadership accelerator course, I call this a mental ninja, mental ninja skills, right? So if I'm a nourished if I'm a nourished ninja, messing up my words. If I'm a nourished ninja, I'm solving for how to stay sustained as a leader. I'm not burning out. I'm not in my stress mode and looping thoughts in my head that are depleting me. I'm not racing around. My mind isn't jumping from 20 different things. And that's a skill that can happen when we train the brain and our bodies to get nourished. And that's super, super important. But we have to know what to look for. We have to know how to access it and what it means. So my question to you, listener, my dear listener, is what is nourishing for you today? Like, what have you done that feels nourishing? Just think about what you've done so far in your morning hours, in the day that you've had. And you could even go back maybe 24 hours if you need to, but I think you could probably just stay in the last couple hours. Maybe you woke up and brushed your teeth and you thought today's going to be a good day. And that's a really good skill, by the way, right? That requires conscious effort. Maybe you went outside and put the garbage cans out. Even though that might not be an aspect you think of as nourishing, you were outside, the sun was on your face, you felt the ground underneath you. These aren't big things, right? But they require us to be present. That's like big part of this. And they require us to be learning and growing in the moment. Okay, those are like the two things that are so important to be nourished. And that's, again, a skill that we can learn and build. I know the media doesn't tell us that's what nourishment is. No, heck no. We go to the spa, we get our nails done, I'm going to the hairdresser today for a bang trim. Like, oh, I'm going to get nourished. No. Like, am I learning and growing in that moment? Nope, not really. Am I checking my phone if I'm there, or you might be? Then you're not present, right? So the key is these are 2 aspects of nourishment that are super, super important. And that definition is from the Wright Graduate University, where I studied this, and they know what they're talking about. So Nourish Ninja is so important in that in EQ, we do that because you are self-aware to know what you need when you're present for it, and then you regulate, right? You know how to back off of something if you're feeling a little stressed out. It's really cool. So then we have one more pillar left that mastering your EQ solves for as a female business leader. Can you guess what it is? I kind of slipped and said it already, which was a faux pas on my part. But if you haven't guessed by now, it's really tying it all together. And it's these mental ninja skills, right? Being a mental ninja on the fly, where you are able to like use that taser technique I talk about in Pause, zap your critic brain, mental floss, right? Like mental flossing, where you tease out literally, oh, that thought didn't serve me. You stay objective in those things. Mental ninja skills, yes, they require presence, but it's so much more than that. It's really knowing how to talk to yourself so that you feel nourished. So you can also identify unconscious beliefs, and believe it or not, you can do that even when you're not conscious, through coaching, through programs, through support. But no one can do it alone. That's the other key, because guess what? You probably know this. Being unconscious means you don't know what it is that you are thinking sometimes, right? It's an underlying current that isn't available in the thinking brain. And that's a super oversimplified answer, but I think that will suffice for now. Okay, so what happens when we have mental ninja skills, everybody? I know what you're thinking. Well, I can get through my day. I can feel better. I can enjoy the sun on my face when I am taking the garbage out. I don't have to think about just all the crappy garbage I got to take out. Right? Rick Hanson, who wrote The Buddha's Brain, he wrote Resilience. He is on the Pausecast. There's a really, really good episode with him. I adore Dr. Hanson. He has this great quote that he says that negative thoughts are like Velcro, And positive thoughts are like Teflon. Okay, so just image that in your own mental ninja skills right now, right? So when we have negative thoughts, it's like they just cannot go away. They're stuck. They're just like Velcro in, man. Like you've got your laces on your shoes and they're never coming off, no matter how hard you pull it apart. That's the reality, because our brains are reptilian evolution and fight or flight mode can kick in and we're scanning for threats. That's really what happens. So knowing that, we, the collective, and you as the incredible leader that you are, can say, hey, you know what? I don't have to believe my thoughts today. I can focus on one positive thing. I can tell myself, you know, today is going to be a good day, right back to that, or whatever it is that you want. And that's like Teflon. So guess what? That's going to slip away unless you really tell yourself maybe 5 or 10 times in the day. And that reminds me of another statistic I want to share, which is a great one from the Gottman Institute, right? John Gottman. We all know him. He wrote, oh, wow, he's done a lot of things, but he has this concept of, oh gosh, I got to look it up now. Not doing a very good job of, yeah, so the Gottman Institute are experts on relationships and do incredible work in the world. Maybe I'll have him on the podcast sometime, the Pausecast, but he talks about the number of times we need to have a positive thought to negate at least one negative thought. And what the Gottmans say is that it takes 7 positive thoughts to negate one negative thought. So for every one negative thought, if you thought 7 positive ones, then you'd start to actually outdo that negative thought in your brain, right? If you want to neutralize it, it's 5. So just even to neutralize it, you still need 5 positive thoughts. And that's what we're talking about here. That's why mental ninja skills are super critical. You cannot move forward as an EQ leader without them. Like you just can't. So knowing that's an important part of this practice, what are the skills that you already have? I'm sure there's some that you could take inventory from and then actually celebrate those, right? That's accenting the positive. That's you doing the work for being a mental ninja and helping EQ mastery in your own way be what it needs to be for you. All right. So there you go. I just went through these 4 pillars, and real quickly, they are the, just in general, being an EQ leader and saying, this is what I'm signing up for. This is my new way of leading because we need it. I will feel more nourished and supported through this because it fulfills me to show up like this, and others will benefit too. I'm going to bring others along with me. I want to make a difference in this world. I want to do these things that are important, and we can't do that without our feelings. We just can't. Otherwise, we'd all be automatons or ChatGPT, right? The second one is embodied leader. So we need to match our bodies with our words and our thoughts. And that's hard, right? And our bodies can react and respond in ways that aren't when they're not in alignment. So that's a really big one, because that's solving for us to feel aligned and to feel fulfilled and to feel supported as well. And the nourished ninja skills solves for how to sustain yourself. I think one of the biggest issues I see right now, the gap, I have a lot of clients coming to me telling me they are not sustained. They are doing so well in their job, like they're getting promoted, they're getting raises. Even if they're laid off, they find a job immediately, and they're not sustained. And that is not okay, because it doesn't have to be that way, right? Why would you run yourself into the ground while you're doing great stuff so that you can't enjoy any of it? That's not okay, right? And so we have to learn new ways. And that's what that is, being a nourished ninja. And then lastly, mental skills, these EQ, being a mental ninja means that you are navigating negativity. You're finding new words that can support new ways of being, and you're allowing yourself to create things in the conscious brain that is impacting your unconscious, to know that your thoughts and feelings and behavior are shifting in ways towards really feeling like you're reaching your potential and coming out on top as a female business leader in all aspects of your life, not just work. Because like I said earlier, and I do love this quote, right? I wonder who said it. The way you do one thing is the way you do everything. If anyone knows who said that, it might just be an ancient proverb. Maybe that's it. All right. So listen, if you are really thinking about this, I'd like you to think about which one of those 4 pillars do you want to focus on? Like, which one of those would be the one to say, hey, you know what? I do need to get sustained. I need these skills as a Nourish Ninja. I don't know what to do. How do I start? So first of all, you've already started. So give yourself some credit. You've listened to this podcast. You're thinking about things in a way, and that's the first step, right? There's so much more. You're scratching the surface, but this is huge. And know that change happens in incremental steps. It's not a big thing to do a shift, because then we end up usually failing. So know that I have so many tools and resources for you. I have so many. One of them is a retreat coming up in May in San Francisco. It's open for the public. Anyone can come. It's May 13th. It's a Saturday, 10 to 6 p.m. I've got this weekly podcast. I've got coaching. You can sign up for a 30-minute free complimentary call with me, an Amplify Your Impact strategy session. We can figure out what those root causes are that are causing you to maybe not be feeling good or overwhelmed. We can totally tease that out and get you some tools. Thank you so much for being here. Know that you are on your way. If you are listening to this, you are not here by accident, my friend. Thank you so much for being here. And remember, pausing is in service to your doing, and it is not an accident that we need both and that we need our feelings. We are designed to feel. It will get you to your next level of leadership. Thank you. And we will see you next time on the Pausecast.